welcome everyone. So today it's Thursday, so we'll be reading in English. Last week was absolutely brilliant. We had a peak of 10 people at the time. For a first show, it was absolutely amazing. So I really thank everyone. And yeah, so Tuesday was in French. That also was a grande première, and it was really original. I don't know how to say. The reading is so different in both languages. Although it's the same book, although it's the Iliad in two languages, reading the same chapter in both languages is so not the same thing to do. So anyway, yeah, about the sound. If the mic is not loud enough, well, just turn the sound up. We do what we can with what we have, fortunately. So yeah, and yeah, just so that you know how things go. So well, if there's any new people, never know. Um, so I'll be reading for roughly half an hour, and then we'll have a pause. While I'm reading, I can't read the chat or participate. Sorry, because well, I don't want to break, the reading. That's it. So yeah, and then we'll have a 5 minute pause. And then we'll talk a little bit if you want, if you have questions, if you have things to say, I don't know, about the sound, the lights, whatever. If you have technical things to tell me about, because I need people to tell me if something's wrong. So anyway, and yeah, then after the pause, of course, I'll be reading again. This second part today is especially hard. You'll see. I'll tell you more about it during the pause, but anyway. And finally, I'll stay a bit and chat at the end. So if you have any questions or anything, yeah, if you have something to say, if you weren't there before the pause or anything, I mean, ask. I'm here for that. You can ask me anything, and I'll be glad to answer, especially if it's related to the book. So yeah, that's it. I think we'll start. So it's Homer, the Iliad, Chapter 2. The forces are displayed. The other gods and all the fighting men slept through the night, but there was no easeful sleep for Zeus. He was wondering how he could vindicate Achilles and have the Achaeans slaughtered at the ships. He decided that the best way would be to send King Agamemnon a false dream. So he summoned one and instructed it. "Off with you, evil dream, to the Achaean ships. Go to Agamemnon, son of Atreus, in his hut, and repeat to him exactly what I say. Tell him to prepare his long-haired Achaeans for battle at once. His chance of capturing the spacious city of Troy has come, for we, immortals that live on Olympus, are no longer divided on that issue. Here his pleading has brought all of us round, and the Trojans' fate is sealed." The dream listened, set forth on its errand, and was soon at the Achaean ships, where it sought out King Agamemnon and found him lying fast asleep in his hut. Assuming the appearance of Nestor, son of Neleus, the king's most valued counsellor, the dream from heaven leant over his bed and called him by his royal titles. "Asleep?" it said. "It is not right for a ruler who has the nation in his charge, a man with so much on his mind, to sleep all night. Listen to me carefully, and understand that I come to you from Zeus, who, far off as he is much concerned on your behalf and pities you. He wishes you to prepare your long-haired Achaeans for battle instantly. Your chance of capturing the spacious city of Troy has come, for the immortals that live on Olympus are no longer divided on that issue. Here his pleading has converted them all, and the Trojans' doom is sealed by Zeus. Bear this in mind, and do not let the memory escape you when you wake from your slumbers." With that, the dream went off, leaving the king with a false picture of the future in his mind. He imagined he would capture Priam's city on that very day, fool that he was. He little knew what Zeus intended, nor all the sufferings and groans he had in store for both sides in the bitter fighting still to come. When he woke from his sleep, the divine voice was ringing in his ears. He sat up on the bed and put on his soft tunic, a lovely new-made garment, and over that a flowing mantle. He bound a stout pair of sandals on his comely feet, slung a silver-studded sword from his shoulder, picked up the everlasting staff that was the sceptre of his line, and with this in his hand walked down to the ships where his bronze-clad army lay. When heavenly dawn reached high Olympus, announcing day to Zeus and the other gods, Agamemnon ordered his clear-voiced heralds to summon the long-haired Achaeans to assembly. The heralds cried their summons, and the soldiers speedily trooped in. But first he called a meeting of the royal council beside the ship of Nestor, king of Pylos, and when he had gathered them together, unfolded a subtle plan to his counselors. "Friends," he began, "I was visited in my sleep by a dream from heaven, which came to me through the solemn night, and in its looks, its stature, and its bearing resembled my lord Nestor most exactly. It stood beside me, and addressed me by my royal titles. 'Are you asleep?' it said. 'It is not right for a ruler who has the nation in his charge, a man with so much on his mind, to sleep all night. Listen to me carefully, and understand that I come to you from Zeus, who, far off as he is much concerned on your behalf and pities you. He wishes you to prepare your long-haired troops for battle instantly. Your chance of capturing the spacious city of Troy has come, for the immortals that live on Olympus are no longer divided on that issue. Hera's pleading has converted them all, and the Trojans' doom is sealed by Zeus. Remember what I have said.' With that, it flew away, and I woke up. So now, we must take steps to get our forces into battle order. But first, as is legitimate for me, I am going to test them by a speech, in which I shall invite them to take to their well-found ships and sail for home. From your several stations you must then speak out and urge them to remain." Agamemnon sat down, and Nestor, who was king of sandy Pylos, got up to speak, and gave them his opinion as a loyal counsellor. "My friends," he said, "captains and counsellors of the Argives, if any other of our countrymen had told us of a dream like this, we should have thought it false, and felt anything but eagerness to exploit it. But as it is, the man who had the dream is our commander-in-chief, so I propose that we take steps at once to get the troops under arms." Nestor had no sooner finished than he made a move to break up the council. The other sceptred kings took their cue from the venerable chieftain and also left their seats. They were met by the incoming troops, who had issued, tribe on tribe, from their ships and huts by the wide sea sands to march in battalions to the meeting place, like buzzing swarms of bees that come out in relays from a hollow rock and scatter by companies right and left, to fall in clusters on the flowers of spring. Rumour, the messenger of Zeus, spread through them like fire, driving them until all were gathered together, and now the meeting place became the scene of turmoil. As they took their seats, the earth groaned beneath them, and above all the noise the shouting of 9 heralds could be heard, doing their utmost to make them stop their din and attend to their royal masters. When, after much ado, they had found their seats on the benches and had all been induced to settle down and cease from chatter, King Agamemnon rose, holding a staff which Hephaestus himself had made. Hephaestus gave it to Zeus, the royal son of Cronos, and Zeus to Hermes, the guide and slayer of Argus. The lord Hermes presented it to Pelops, the great charioteer, and Pelops passed it on to Atreus, shepherd of the people. When Atreus died, he left it to Thyestes, rich in flocks, and he, in his turn, bequeathed it to Agamemnon, to be held in token of his empire over many islands and all the Argive lands. This was the staff that Agamemnon now leant on as he addressed his Argive troops. "I must announce to you, my gallant friends and Danaan men-at-arms, that Zeus, the great son of Cronos, has dealt me a crushing blow. The cruel god, who once solemnly assured me that I should never sail home till I had brought the towers of Ilium tumbling down, has changed his mind, and now, to my bitter disappointment, bids me retreat to Argos in disgrace, with half my army lost. It appears that unconquerable Zeus, who has brought down the high towers of many a city, and will destroy others yet, has decided thus in his omnipotence. But what a scandal! What a tale for our descendants' ears, that such a large and excellent force as ours should be engaged so ineffectually, with no decision in sight, in an unsuccessful struggle with a weaker enemy. I say weaker, because if we and the Trojans made a truce, and each side held account, the enemy reckoning only native Trojans and we Achaeans numbering off in tens, with the idea that each of our squads should have Trojans to pour out its wine, many a squad would go without a steward. Such I believe to be the odds that we enjoy against the Trojans in the city itself. Unfortunately, they have numerous and well-equipped allies from many towns, who thwart me and defeat all my efforts to bring down the great stronghold of Ilium. 9 fateful years have passed. The timbers of our ships have rotted, and their rigging has perished. Our wives and little children sit at home and wait for us. Meanwhile, the task we set ourselves when we came here remains undone. So now, let every man of you take his cue from me. Aboard the ships, I say, and home to our own country. Troy, with its broad streets, will never fall to us." Agamemnon's words went straight to the heart of every man in the crowd, except those who had attended the council, and the whole assembly was stirred like the waters of the Icarian Sea when a southeaster falls on them from a lowering sky, and sets the great waves on the move, or like deep corn in a tumbled field, bowing its ears to the onslaught of the wild west wind. They raised a mighty roar, and made a dash for the ships. The dust they kicked up, with their feet hung high overhead. They shouted to each other to get hold of the ships, and dragged them down into the friendly sea. They cleared the runways out. They even started shifting the props from under the hulls, and in their scramble to be off, they made a din which struck high heaven. It was a word from Here to Athene that saved the Argives from this unpredestined dash for home. "And sleeping daughter of Aegis-bearing Zeus," she said, "here is a sorry state of affairs. Are we to let these people run away and sail home over the high seas to Argos without Argive Helen? Is she, for whom so many of her countrymen have died on Trojan soil, far from their motherland, to be left for Priam, and the Trojans to boast about? Bestir yourself, go down among these bronze-clad Achaeans, and use your eloquence to stop them. Deal with them man by man. Don't let them drag the curved ships down into the sea." The bright-eyed goddess Athene was nothing loath. She swooped down from the Olympian heights, and quickly reaching the Achaean ships, found Odysseus in his godlike wisdom standing fast. He had not even touched his good black ship. He was broken-hearted. Athene of the flashing eyes went up to him and said, "Royal son of Laertes, Odysseus of the nimble wits, are you all going to run off like this, tumbling aboard your galleys to get home, and leaving Helen for Priam and his men to boast about? Argive Helen, for whom so many of her countrymen have died far from their motherland on Trojan soil? Come, do not loiter here, but move about among the troops. Use all your eloquence to stop them. Deal with them man by man. Don't let them drag their curved ships down into the sea." Odysseus recognized the voice of the goddess, and set out at a run, throwing off his cloak to be gathered up by the herald Eurybates, his Ithacan squire. He went straight to King Agamemnon, borrowed from him the everlasting sceptre of the house of Atreus, and with this in his hand went down among the ships and the bronze-clad troops. When he came upon anyone of royal birth or high rank, he went up to him and made courteous attempts to restrain him. "I shall not think it right," he said, "to threaten you, sir, as I should a common man, but I do beg you to stand fast yourself and to make your followers do the same. You do not really know what King Agamemnon has in mind. This is only an experiment with the men. They will soon feel his fist. Did we not all of us hear what he said at the council? I am afraid he may be angry with the troops and punish them for this. Kings are divine, and they have their pride, upheld and favoured as they are by the council of Zeus." With the rank and file he had a different way. When he caught any of them giving tongue, he struck the offender with his staff and rated him severely. "You there," he said, "sit still and wait for orders from your officers. Who are better men than you, coward and weakling that you are, counting for nothing in battle or debate? We cannot all be kings here, and mob rule is a bad thing. Let there be one commander only, one king, set over us by Zeus the son of Cronos of the crooked ways." Thus restoring order, Odysseus brought the men to heel, and now they all flocked back to the meeting place from the ships and huts, with a noise like that of the roaring sea when the surf is thundering on a league-long beach, and the deep lifts up its voice. They all sat down, and quiet was established on the benches, but for one man who refused to hold his tongue. This was the irrepressible Thersites, who, when he felt inclined to bait his royal masters, was never at a loss for some vulgar quip, empty and scurrilous indeed, but well calculated to amuse the troops. He was the ugliest man that had come to Ilium. He had a game foot and was bandy-legged. His rounded shoulders almost met across his chest, and above them rose a egg-shaped head which sprouted a few short hairs. Nobody loathed the man more heartily than Achilles and Odysseus, who were his favourite butts. But now it was against the noble Agamemnon that he raised his shrill voice in a torrent of abuse, choosing the moment when the exasperated soldiers were hot with indignation against him. "My lord," he shouted at the king in his loud and nagging way, "what is your trouble now? What more do you want? Your huts are full of bronze, and since we always give you the first pick when a town is sacked, you have plenty of the choicest women in them too. Maybe you are short of gold, the ransom that some Trojan lord may come along with from the city to free a son of his who has been tied up and brought in by myself or another of the man? Or one more girl to sleep with and to make your private property, though it ill becomes you as our general to lead the army into trouble through such practices. As for you, my friend, poor specimens that you are, Achaean women, I cannot call you men, let us sail for home by all means, and leave this fellow here to batten on his spoils and find out how completely he depends on the ranks. Why, only a little while ago he insulted Achilles, a far better man than he is. He walked off with his prize and kept her for himself, but it needs more than that to make Achilles lose his temper. He takes things lying down. Otherwise, my lord, that outrage would have been your last." No sooner had Thersites launched this diatribe against Agamemnon, the commander-in-chief, than he found the great Odysseus standing by him with a grim look in his eye. Odysseus rated the man soundly. "Thersites," he began, "this may be eloquence, but we have had enough of it. You drivelling fool, how dare you stand up to the king? It is not for you, the meanest wretch in my opinion of all that follow the Atreid to Ilium, to hold forth with the king's names on your tongue, and to slander them with an eye to getting home. Nobody here knows exactly how this business will end. We may return in triumph, we may not. and all you do is to sit there and abuse King Agamemnon, our commander-in-chief, enlarging in your insolent way on the liberality that our gallant leaders show him. Now mark my words, and I make no idle threats. If I catch you once again playing the fool like this, let my head be parted from my shoulders, and Telemachus be called no son of mine, if I don't lay my hands on you, and strip you of your clothes, cloak, tunic, and all that hides your nakedness, and then thrash you ignominiously, and throw you out to the assembly to go and blubber by the ships." As he finished, Odysseus struck him on the back and shoulders with his staff. Thersites flinched and burst into tears. A bloody wheal, raised by the golden studs on the rod, swelled up and stood out on the man's back. He sat down terrified, and in his pain looked round him helplessly and brushed away a tear. The rest, disgruntled though they were, had a hearty laugh at his expense. "Good work!" cried one man, catching his neighbour's eye and saying what they all were feeling. "There's a many a fine thing to Odysseus' credit, what with the sound schemes he has put forward and his leadership in battle, but he has never done us a better turn than when he stopped the mouth of this windy ranter. I do not think Thersites will be in a hurry to come here again and sling insults at the kings." Such was the verdict of the gathering. And now Odysseus, sacker of cities, rose to speak with the staff in his hand. Athene of the flashing eyes, disguising herself as a herald, stood beside him and called the assembly to order, so that the farthest rows of Achaeans, as well as those in front, might hear his words and understand their purport. Odysseus had their interest at heart, and it was in this spirit that he now harangued them. "My lord Agamemnon," he began, "it seems that the Achaeans are determined to render you, their king, an object of contempt to the whole world, breaking the promise they made you on the voyage here from Argos, where the horses graze, the promise that you should never sail home till you had brought down the towers of Ilium. Hear how they whimper to each other about getting back. They might be little boys or widowed wives. Not that I deny that our labours here have been enough to send a man away disheartened. A sailor in a well-found ship will fret and fume when the winter gales and rising seas have cooped him up and kept him from his wife for even a month, whereas we have hung on here for 9 long years. Small blame then to the troops for moping by the ships. Yet what a shameful thing it would be after staying so long to go home empty-handed. Be patient, my friends. Hold out a little longer, till we discover whether Calchas prophesies the truth or not. You all know what I mean. In fact, you saw the thing yourselves, though since then death has thinned your ranks. It happened in Aulis, not after all so very long ago, when the Achaean fleet was gathering there with its load of trouble for Priam and the Trojans. We were sacrificing to the gods on their holy altars round a spring under a fine plane tree, at the foot of which the sparkling stream gushed out, when a momentous thing occurred. A snake with blood-red markings on his back, a fearsome animal whom Zeus himself must have driven from his lair, darted out from below an altar and made straight for the tree. There was a brood of young sparrows on the highest branch, poor little creatures nestling under the leaves, 8 birds in all, or 9 counting the mother of the hatch. All of them, cheeping piteously, and with their mother fluttering round and wailing for the little ones, were eaten by the snake. He got the mother too. He coiled himself up, and seized her by the wing, as she came screaming by. But when he had devoured them all, mother and young, the god who had caused him to come out transformed him. He was turned into stone by the son of Cronos of the crooked ways, and we stood, gaping at the miracle. What could be meant by the intrusion on our holy rites of this portentous beast? Calchas interpreted the omen then and there. "Why are you dumbfounded?" he said. "Achaeans of the flowing locks? It was for us that Zeus the Thinker staged this prophetic scene. We have waited for it long, and we shall have to wait for the sequel, but the memory of this day will not die. There were 8 young sparrows, making 9 with their mother, and all of these, mother and hatch, were eaten by the snake. 9, then, in the number of years, is the number of years, that we shall have to fight at Troy, and in the 10th its broad streets will be ours. That is what Calchas prophesied, and all he said is coming true. Soldiers and fellow countrymen, I call upon you all to stand your ground till we capture Priam's spacious town. When he finished, the Achaeans gave a great shout to show how well they had liked this speech from the godlike Odysseus, a shout that the ships around them echoed with a sullen roar. But Nestor the Gerenian charioteer also had something to say to his countrymen. "Upon my word," he exclaimed, "you might be little boys with no interest in war, to judge by all this talk. What has become of our compacts and our oaths? You behave as though the warlike plans that we matured together, the loyalties we ratified in wine and pledged with our right hands, were so much rubbish. Words are the only weapons we are using now, and they will not get us anywhere, however long we stay and talk. My lord Agamemnon, be true as always to your firm resolve, and lead the Argives into action. If there are 1 or 2 traitors among us, scheming to sail for home before they find out whether Zeus was telling us the truth, leave them to rot. In any case, they will not succeed, for I am convinced that the almighty son of Cronos said yes to us that day we got aboard our ships of war to bring death and destruction to the Trojans. There was a flash of lightning on our right. He meant that all would be well. Let there be no scramble to get home, then, till every man of you has slept with a Trojan wife, and be paid for the toil and groans that Helen caused him. Anyone who hankers to be off has only to touch his good black ship to find himself a dead man before all the rest. And now, my lord, make certain that your own plans are sound, and take advice from others. Here is my own. I am sure it will not be lost on you. Sort your men out, Agamemnon, into their tribes and clans, so that clan may help clan, and the tribes support each other. Such dispositions, if the troops adhere to them, will show you what cowards you may have among the officers or in the ranks, and what good men. For each man will be fighting at his brother's side, and you will soon find out whether it is God's will that stands between you and the sack of Troy, or the cowardice of your soldiers and their incompetence in war." King Agamemnon complimented Nestor on his speech. "One more debate," he said, "where you, my venerable lord, have carried all before you. Our father Zeus, Athene and Apollo, gave me 10 counsellors such as this, and King Priam's town, captured and sacked by Achaean hands, would soon be tottering. But Zeus the son of Cronos will torment me. He entangles me in fruitless broils and squabbles. Look at my quarrel with Achilles over a girl, when each of us insulted the other, though it was I who lost my temper first. If ever he and I see eye to eye once more, there will not be a day's reprieve for the Trojans. However, the first thing for you all is to have a meal, and then to battle. Sharpen all spears, adjust your shields, see that your good horses have their fodder, and overhaul your chariots for action in a grim pitched battle that will last all day. There will be no respite, none at all, till night parts us in our fury. The straps of your man-covering shields will be soaked with sweat on your breasts. Your hands will weary on your spears. The horses tugging at your polished chariots will sweat, and as for any shirker I may find disposed to linger by the beaked ships, nothing can save him. He is for the dogs and birds of prey." The Argives welcomed Agamemnon's speech with a great roar, like the thunder of the sea on a lofty coast when a gale comes in from the south and hurls the waves against a rocky cape, which they never leave at peace whatever wind is blowing. They broke up the assembly at once and dispersed among the ships, where they lit fires in their huts and ate a meal. Each man, as he made his offerings to his favourite among the everlasting gods, prayed that he might come through the ordeal with his life. King Agamemnon himself sacrificed a fatted 5-year-old ox to the almighty son of Cronos, and invited the leading chieftains of the united Achaeans to attend. Nestor first of all, then King Idomeneus, Aias and his namesake, Diomedes son of Tydeus, and for a sixth, Odysseus, whose thoughts were like the thoughts of Zeus. There was no need for him to invite his brother Menelaus of the loud war-cry, who knew how heavy Agamemnon's burden was, and came of his own accord. Standing round the victim, they took up the sacrificial grains and heard King Agamemnon pray. "Most glorious and mighty Zeus, God of the black cloud, Lord of high heaven, grant that the sun may not set and darkness fall before I bring down Priam's palace, blackened with smoke, send up his gates in flames, and rip the tunic on the breast of Hector with my bronze. And at his side let plenty of his friends be felled and bite the dust." Thus Agamemnon prayed, but Zeus was not prepared to grant him what he wished. He accepted his offering, but in return he sent him double tribulation. When they had made their petitions and scattered the grain, they drew back the victim's head, slit its throat, and flayed it. Then they cut out slices from the thighs, wrapped them in folds of fat, and laid raw meat above them. These pieces they burnt on faggots stripped of leaves, then put the inner parts on spits and held them over the flames. When the thighs were burnt up, and they had tasted the entrails, they carved the rest into small pieces, pierced them with skewers, roasted them thoroughly, and drew them all off. Their work done and the food prepared, they fell to with a good will on the meal, in which all had equal shares. And when their hunger and thirst were satisfied, the Gerenian charioteer Nestor took the lead and said, "Your Majesty, Agamemnon king of men, let us prolong this meeting no further, nor put off the work that God has set our hands to. Come, let the heralds of the bronze-clad Achaeans go the round of the ships, and call out all the troops. Then we commanders could inspect the whole army together, and soon work up a fighting spirit in the men." King Agamemnon accepted his advice, and gave immediate orders to his clear-voiced heralds to call the long-haired Achaeans to battle. And now, dear viewers, I will take a pause and drink my good old tea. See you in 5 minutes.